Well, good day, everybody, and welcome back. Well, I've been interested in a number of videos recently about typing style, typing technique, and how you can get the best out of your typewriter, and also how to troubleshoot whether you have a technique problem, your style of typing, or is it a machine problem, or maybe it's an interaction between both technique and the particular machine you're working with. So I'd like to talk about this a little bit, and I'd like to use a little tool that I just discovered I had that might help me troubleshoot some of my typing issues. Stay tuned. So it interests me when I'm looking at online discussions about newcomers to typewriters who have problems with their typing technique or the machine. Maybe they have piling on the letters or skipping or whatever. And often they will be advised by old-timers that you just need to have a better technique. In fact, this is resembling what I remember from back in the 1980s when I was a TV repairman. And oftentimes, the first thing we would do when we had a customer complaining about a problem with a TV set or whatever that we'd already worked on is the first thing we would do is try to find a reason to blame them so that we wouldn't have to take the machine back, right? But that's not really the best strategy if you want to maintain good customer relations with people. It's really important to listen to people and understand where they're coming from. So oftentimes with typewriters, there's an interaction between your technique and the individual design foibles of that particular machine. And I can think off the top of my head, which would be right up here, I think the Royal Quiet Deluxe might be one typewriter that reminds me that it has a particular sensitivity to how you type, specifically about releasing the keys fast enough, otherwise it could cause skipping. Whereas like the 5 Series Smith Coronas, they just don't have that sensitivity to that issue because the escapement trip point works completely differently between those two models. So, having said all that, it's a question of, is it me or my machine, or is it both? And to answer that, I think we need some tools. I had an older iPhone, and I recently got a newer iPhone. This is an iPhone 13 now, the new one. But then I noticed that there was this app that was in the App Store called Final Cut Camera. And I downloaded it, and Final Cut Camera gives you a lot more control over your video shooting than the default camera app. And so digging into it, I discovered it'll do 240 frames per second at 1080p resolution. So I thought, you know what, that is actually a tool I can use to take a look at these typewriters in slow motion as I'm typing on them. And maybe I can use that video as a means of troubleshooting my own personal typing technique with individual machines, which brings me to the point that every manual typewriter model has a different type of keyboard usually, in terms of how closely spaced the keys are, the shape of the keys, and how steep the tiering is from the front row to the back row. All of that affects the sense of whether you feel crowded or not, or how easy the keys are to reach, and how fast can you type, and also how accurately can you hit the keys without fumbling and mishitting neighboring keys, right? So I'm going to try to do a series of video clips here on various typewriters, and I'll use the same text, I think the Quick Brown Fox. So I'm going to do this on various manual typewriters, and we'll just look at the video, and then we can see if I can spot typing technique issues, and maybe we can also spot problems that almost show up. Like, for instance, after I type the key, the type bar is heading back, and then I'm not pulling my finger back away fast enough, and the keypad bumps my finger on the way up, which stops the type bar from coming back, and it actually bounces the type bar forward, and then it comes back in. And that makes kind of a double thing like that, which can actually cause skipping. If it goes far enough to go past the trip point, reset the escape, and then go forward again. So we can see all these secret little things going on that you normally wouldn't notice because they're happening so fast. We'll see it with this 240 frames per second video. So let's do this. Let's get into it. The first typewriter I'm going to try out is this Underwood Olivetti Studio 44. So we'll shoot video of the Olivetti, and then we'll work through a few more typewriters, some that I get along better with, and we'll also try some that I don't get along better with and see if we can spot maybe there's a technique issue or a timing issue or something. Okay, let's do it. So this is the Studio 44, and I noticed that there's some type bar bouncing after it hits the platen. And that right there, I just hit another key, and next to it, same thing there. Wow, that was really bad. So I'm sloppy on the keyboard. I'm hitting other keys adjacent to where I'm striking. And you notice there's a little bit of hesitation when the type bar is coming back from being struck. It kind of makes a little wobble, almost like it wants to go forward again, and then it comes back again. But that's not causing any problems with this machine yet, but it could be a problem depending on the machine itself. Okay, so this is the Hermes 3000, the middle body style. And I like typing on this. It looks like I'm really sloppy. I keep hitting the wrong keys. You can see other type bars moving. But when they do strike, they look like they're not bouncing too much. There is a certain amount of hesitation when they come back, and that's related to how quickly I'm releasing my fingers off of the keys. But it looks like, now, by the way, I am trying to type fairly fast here. I'm not trying to be slow and precise. Yeah, so I do have a few other neighboring type bars that are being struck, and I'm sort of using two-fingered typing at this point. So this is the Royal Model O. Doing a carriage return, a very slow carriage return. Let's see how I do here. So it looks like there's definitely a double bounce when it hits the platen. It might even cause a ghost mark, a ghost impression, depending on if the platen is moving when it hits that second strike. Also, you can notice on this one, the type bar rest appears to be very hard because the type bars are bouncing when they hit the type bar rest. And I have not replaced it, but this is a 1938 machine. It certainly needs a new type bar rest, as you can see. I'm not doing too bad here with hitting the incorrect keys there. I did the one. I think part of this is because of my two-fingered typing style. My unused fingers are kind of getting down too low on the keyboard and just tapping neighboring keys by mistake. See right there, or the P or whatever. So this is the Smith Corona Silent Super, another machine that I like. It looks like I was hitting the wrong keys. They're hitting neighboring keys. See, yeah, look at that. It's obvious that I'm hitting neighboring keys on some of, I think, my right hand, which is the left side of your screen. The middle of the keyboard is not so bad, but out toward the minor fingers, I tend to have some problems. It looks like this type bar rest is a little hard. There's a little bit of bouncing on this one, but not super bad. You also notice when the type bar hits the platen, it comes back and kind of makes a little double hit, and that could cause skipping or piling on of letters depending on how the machine is set up. So that's another problem that needs to be fixed with my technique. There is some mishitting of keys right there again. Yeah, this machine is not as bad as some of them as far as retracting your fingers. It looks like it's a little smoother. So this is the late model Olympia SM9. So there's a little bit of almost rebounding after it strikes, but not too bad. There's a little bit of it depending on my technique, I guess. And yes, I am mishitting the keys pretty badly here, you can see. Sometimes 2 or 3 other keys are being hit at the same time. But the type bar rest looks pretty good. It's not bouncing too badly. But again, my fingering accuracy is consistently inconsistent. So this one is the Royal Quiet Deluxe. Looks like some bad fingering technique there. And you notice there's a lot of hammer effect. When the type bar finishes hitting, it bounces forward again. And these Quiet Deluxes are known for causing skipping if you have a bad technique where you don't release the keys. Now my machine doesn't do it, and you can set up the escapement trip so it does it less, but these are very sensitive to bad fingering technique. And you can see again my bad technique causing me to miss hit neighboring keys from the ones intended, like right there. Yeah, not very good technique on my part. So this is the Remington 1040 made in Europe, and it looks like when the type bars hit, they're not bouncing back too badly. Now this typewriter doesn't not have a very comfortable touch. You can see really bad fingering there. It's kind of a little bit harder, not as smooth, but it also means when the type bars strike the platen, they don't bounce as much either. So maybe there's a good thing to that. Type bar rest is a little hard. There's a little bounciness going on, but not too much. But I'm still mishitting the keys on these keyboards. So this is the Splendid 33, the Olympia Splendid 33 Ultra Portable. And I like this particular Ultra Portable. So not too much bouncing going on those type bars. There's a little hesitation when they go back because my fingers aren't retracting off the key top as quickly as it should, but it's not too bad. And the bouncing of the type bars on the type bar rest isn't too bad either. So I would say this machine is in good shape and my technique isn't too bad, except I'm still mishitting the neighboring keys. As you can see, there should only be one type bar being struck at any one time, and there are times when there's 2 or 3 or more, like right there. And just for the sake of having fun with it, here is the IBM Selectric 721, and we're just doing a test typing. This is the cloth cartridge ribbon typewriter. I think I missed focus on the type ball, but I think you can see the motion of it. Rotates, tilts, and the ribbon also lifts very rapidly. Amazing machines for their day. But I don't have any problems typing on this. No snarled type bars. Well, this was quite an interesting experiment, and it shows me that, personally speaking, I have a lot of things to work on with my typing technique. First of all, my accuracy is not good, and my left hand, which I've known all along, my left hand is not as good as my right hand. I tend to mishit. Part of this could be because I don't have just one typewriter. And if I'm going to really learn a keyboard properly, I need to probably stick to one typewriter, right? Decide which one is going to be the touch typing, long form writing machine, work on my technique. Also, a lot of key bouncing, a lot of type bar bouncing, where it looks like it makes a double strike, and maybe that's because I have a light touch and I try to minimize the heaviness of my hands while at the same time hitting it hard enough to get the machine to work properly, but it looks like I'm right on the edge of maybe triggering some skipping or whatever because of the way, or double printing, like ghost printing, the way they kind of come down and they hit twice and come back. Yeah, so I have some issues to work on, but I think most of us have those issues too if we took the time to examine carefully how that works. So if you have a modern iPhone, get the Final Cut Camera app. I have no connection to it, but it's a really good way to shoot in 240 frames per second. There's obviously other apps out there that will work, and I'm not advocating this one over others. So it's a good tool to use. I did find, however, using LED lights that when you slow it down to 240 frames a second, you see the flicker from the LED lights. And I have 4 lights here that are all coming off the same power source, so they're all going to be in phase, flashing at that same rate. So I have a battery powered light I'm using right now, for this shot. It's also an LED light, but it's not in phase with the others. So I use that also, and a little bit of window light, because it's still the daytime, to kind of fill in the flickering. So you might have some flickering, and I hope that didn't bother you too much. But anyways, it's a good tool to use, having a camera like a cell phone where you can get in close and get 240 frames per second and analyze your typing style. You might be surprised at what you find. It'll give you something to work on. In any event, I wish you the very best with your creative pursuits and your writing. And as always, stay creative and have yourselves a great day. And bye-bye for now.